present myself in front of my students all over the Maharashtra so that they get to know about the rapid review of or rapid revision for the dental material of prosthodontic aspects. The first and foremost properties of the dental material, it is very difficult to cover each and every property of dental material in a period of this small period, but the important points, the important properties have to be discussed. Those are very important in terms of an examination and even for the clinical point of view. So we are discussing stress and strain, coefficient of thermal expansion, dimensions of the color, metamerism, biological considerations of the dental material. Stress is an internal force that resists an externally applied load or a force. Whenever any force is applied to a particular object or a particular thing, the internal force would be applied to that material, and that is called as a stress. So always remember, stress is an internal force and not an external force. External force may be in the form of compressive force, which try to compress or shorten the material. It may be in the form of say the tensile force, which tries to elongate the material in the same direction of the force, or it may be in the form of a shear force, which gives the sliding or a twisting kind of a motion to that particular object. So again, strain is the change in length per unit original length when the stress is applied to it. So for example, you want to know about the strain if there is a change in length is about 1 unit for that particular object and the original length is 10 units, then the strain would be 0.1 unit. So for better understanding, it is a change in length per unit original length. The strain can be either elastic. Elastic means what? It totally disappears after the removal of an external force, and it can be plastic, which retains its shape even after the removal of the external load. So this is the basic diagram which can show you regarding, like, this is a shear force which is going to apply on the interface A and B. Like in that particular force, the shear stress is going to occur in the sliding motion, but in an elastic strain, it will retain that particular force whenever it is going back to its original position. But in case of a plastic shear strain, that would be the permanent changes what would be done in the interface, and there would be a permanent change in the dimensions of that particular object. So whenever we plot a stress and a strain or a deformation in an x and a y axis, there is a straight line of the line that represents the line of elastic deformation is called as elastic deformation. The slope of the straight part of the line represents the modulus of elasticity, and the length of the curved part is always represents the ductility. So most of the time these questions are asked to us during the your viva for the dental material, and then the students are supposed to answer about in this particular manner. The area which is present under the line represent is called as a resiliency, and the area is the entire represent is called as a toughness. Means the toughness is a combination of elastic as well as the plastic deformation. Whereas in case of elastic deformation, there is only the resiliency is going to occur. So the elastic deformation or is the resiliency of that particular matter. Coefficient of thermal expansion, Dr. Samir Zadav has tried to explain the coefficient of thermal expansion. It is generally in the examination, the external ask or the internal ask you a question like CTE, coefficient of thermal expansion, or maybe in the examination you would be asked to ask COTE, coefficient of thermal expansion. What is it? It is the change in length per unit of the original length of the material when the temperature is raised by 1 degree Kelvin. So even if in a similar way what we have discussed about the strain and strain, whenever the temperature of any material is raised by 1 degree Kelvin, if the changes occur, there is a 1 unit change is there, and the original length would be the 10, then 0.1 would be the coefficient of thermal expansion of that particular material. So in dentistry, it is very important to know about the coefficient of thermal expansion, because if the restorative material and the tooth doesn't have a similar kind of a coefficient of thermal expansion, there are always chances for the marginal leakage or debonding of that particular restorative material from the tooth structure. In case of a fabrication of the prosthesis, in case of restoration, inlay casting wax is very important, and while taking a direct kind of fabrication for the restoration, The inlay wax pattern is prepared in the oral cavity in the mouth. The oral temperature is around 37 degrees Celsius. When it is brought down to the room temperature, that may be around 20-25 degrees Celsius, there is a decrease in temperature, and that significant decrease in temperature leads to the significant changes in dimension, as the inlay casting wax is high coefficient of thermal expansion, and hence we always recommend that this particular material should be invested as early as possible. Also, in case of a thermal stress which is going to occur due to the mismatch of coefficient of thermal expansion of the metal and the ceramic. In case of a ceramo-metal restoration, the porcelain veneer that is fired to the metal coping, the porcelain contract get greater because the coefficient of thermal expansion of the ceramic is little bit more as compared to metal. So it, whenever it contracts great, and when the metal is going to cool, when the ceramic is going to cool, porcelain is going to contract more because it has a greater amount of coefficient of thermal expansion. That more contraction of porcelain in respect to metal will lead to the tangential stresses at the interface, and that tangential stresses on the interface will lead to the immediate or a delayed kind of a crack formation, and again that particular thing would be going to dislodge at the interface level. Next of the topic is for the properties, we'll discuss about the dimensions of color. As a dentist, as a dental care professional, we should always fulfill the desire of our patient to have an aesthetically acceptable restoration that should simulate the natural appearance, so that if the material is transparent like glass, it will transmit the entire light. If the material is absorbing the light that is an opaque, for example, the metal paints are opaque in nature. And third point is the scattering of light. When the material is transluting, it will scatter the light. So, for example, we have a diffuse kind of a glass which scatter the light, right? It is not transparent, it is not opaque, it is in between transparent and opaque. So dimensions of color are basically hue, value, and chroma. What is hue? Hue is the basic color of that particular object determined by the wavelength of the reflected or the transmitted light observed. So in case of the like basic value, basic color is either yellow, green, or red. By different bit of variation, we are supposed to know the hue of that particular prosthesis or that oral cavern teeth, so that that particular hue should be matched with the shade guide, and that should be conveyed to the laboratory for proper fabrication of the prosthesis. The value is the relative lightness or darkness of the color brightness of an object. If the color is relatively light, it has a greater value. It has color relatively dark, it would be have a less value. So again, the chroma is the difference in color intensity or the strength is called as chroma. Like in a beaker, we add a glass of drop of ink, it will have some different color. Then we add an increasing amount of drop of color, drop of that ink will have a different color. So we are increasing the chroma of that particular water into the different particular quantum. So that chroma is the difference in the color intensity. This is the Munsell's color order system, in which recommend that first of all we are supposed to select the basic hue of that particular tooth. Then we are supposed to look for the value of that particular tooth, and then further the chroma is to be selected. What is metamerism? Generally, metamerism, and these all questions are asked to you as an SAQ. The metamerism is in the appearance of an object depend on the type of light in which the object is used. Sometimes we have a good kind of oral restorations which is good in one particular light, and this is not good in the another particular light. Like in the tube light, it looks something different, and in the daylight, it looks something different. So the objects that appear to be color match under one type of light may appear different under the other light source. This phenomenon is called as metamerism. Generally, in case of a ceramics, may it be in all ceramic or may it be a metal ceramic restoration, or the composites which have a more amount of ceramic fillers present, shows the metamerism kind of a property. That particular process looks one in one light and looks other in other light. So the quality and intensity of light must be controlled in matching color of that particular dental restoration. If possible, color matching should be done under two or more different lights. One should be daylight source. Daylight source is always recommended at the northern afternoon light, maybe around 12 noon to 2 p.m. light is an ideal light where you're supposed to keep the shade matching with that particular thing, and the laboratory should match the exactly the same light should use, and the daylight it should use. So accordingly they will match the shade what you have taken in the dental clinic, and that would be matched in the dental lab. What are the biological considerations of the dental material? These are generally asked to you as a SAQ, or sometimes once in a rare chances they can be asked to you as a LAQ also. So what is biocompatibility? Biocompatibility is being in harmonious with the life and not having any toxic or injurious effects on the biological function of that particular restoration or the dental material. That particular thing, quantum, that is biological consideration of the dental material, is gauged or measured by the localized toxicity, cytotoxicity, that may be either pulpal or the mucosal response of that particular dental material, or that can be gauged by the systemic response, allergenicity or carcinogenicity. What is so what are the requirements to material to be biologically compatible? It should not give any harm to the pulpal or the soft tissue. It should not contain any toxic diffusible substance that may get absorbed in the circulatory system, causing the systemic toxic responses. It should not produce any allergic responses, and it should not be carcinogenic in nature. So biomaterial should be defined by glossary of prosthodontic terms as any substance other than a drug that can be used for a period as a part of a system that treats, augments or replaces any tissue, organ or function of the body. Basically, the biomaterials are classified on the basis whether they contact on the soft tissue within the oral cavity, like for example acrylic resin. They can be further classified on the basis they could affect the health and vitality of the pulp, for example liners and bases. The biomaterials are further classified as a root canal filling material, for example gutta percha. These can also the biomaterials are classified on the basis which affect the hard tissue within the oral cavity, for example titanium alloys which are placed for dental implants, or those which are used in the dental laboratory, for example nickel, chromium, cobalt and different kind of nickel, chromium alloy, gold alloys can be considered that are used in dental laboratory. What are the different tests available for the material to test as a biocompatible material? These are classified on 3 levels, that is group 1 primary test, group 2 that would be a secondary test, and group 3 that would be a use test. The first one, primary test, the main advantage of primary test, it is the in vitro test. You are not going to touch the patient or you are not going to touch the subject, and it is done in a controlled experimental condition. It is the most rapid, economical and easily standardized kind of a test, and the large scale screening is always possible in case of a primary test, but these have some disadvantages, that it has lack of relevance to the in vivo situation or in vivo condition or in vivo scenario of that particular material to the patient. It does not have any kind of immunological, inflammatory or a circulatory system. So the primary test can be either of cytotoxicity test, like fresh or the cured state material is placed directly on the tissue culture cells or on the membrane, and the that particular membrane or the tissue culture cell has been observed for any kind of compatibility with the tissues or the cells. Or it can be have a genotoxicity kind of a test which is carried on the mammalian or non-mammalian cells, that evaluates the gene mutation caused by the dental material. One of which is example is Emmy's test. Some of the examiners generally asked what is Emmy's test, because this is a nice to know question of the biocompatibility. What is Emmy's test? Emmy's test is the material which is tested with a mutant histidine dependent bacteria. Now that particular agent is added to a culture medium containing Salmonella typhimurium. That is a mutant gene which cannot produce histidine, but if that particular material is carcinogenic in nature, Salmonella typhimurium will reverse it to original state, that will start producing histidine again. What are the secondary tests? Secondary tests are the tests which are done on the intact biological system to respond to a material, that provides the important bridge between the in vitro test, that is the primary test, and the user's test. What are the disadvantages? It is relatively more expensive as compared to primary test, and it is difficult to control. It takes some time, and definitely it has some ethical issues. what types of secondary tests are available? The systemic toxicity test is whenever the material administered to the test animal, for example, rats, orally or intravenously, if the more than 50% of animals survive, that particular material is supposed to be relatively safe in secondary test. Then that would be go to the uses test. The skin irritation test is a type of secondary test which shows the inflammatory type inflammation without intervention of antibody or the immune system, where the material is placed intradermally in rats and held in contact for about range of 24 to 90 days, or intramuscularly in rabbit for 24 hours to 7 days. The erythema and the edema are examined and confirmed related to the skin irritation test for the secondary test. Third can be of skin sensitization test. What does it say? It says it is an inflammatory response requiring participation of an antibody system specific to material allergen, done similar to an irritation test, but here the antibody system is involved. So we have to have some amount of allergen and allergic antibody reaction should be, antigen antibody reaction should be there. So fourth one would be the inhalation toxicity test. It is performed in the rats, rabbits, or the guinea pigs in exposure chamber with the aerosol preparation by releasing the spray material around head and upper trunk of that particular animal. If within 2 or 3 minutes the particular subject, that is either rat, rabbit, or a guinea pig dies, it has a death, then it is very toxic. If it is no death, then it is safe for human application, and that can be proceed for the uses test. Implantation test is also type of a secondary test which says only which says that this is the only use for testing implants and endodontic material, in which where the material which is placed subcutaneously, intramuscularly, or as a bone implant at the lateral cortex of the femur or tibia, or it can be placed on the both. Then the histopathological examination is needed, and that is to be done and observed. Period may be up to 1 year, where we are supposed to check whether this particular implant gives any kind of toxic effect locally or systemically to that particular area. As the material or that particular test material is implanted in the body, it is categorized under implantation test, and it is a secondary test. Third one is the uses test. What are the advantages of uses test? The material placed in the environment clinically is the most relevant to its clinical practice, but it has some disadvantages, like it is extremely complex and difficult to perform because of the ethical issues. It is exceptionally expensive because nobody will going to give the concern for the ethical issues, and hence it is exceptionally expensive and very time consuming method is there. In animals it is called as uses test, but if it is done in humans it is called as controlled or clinical trials. What are the different types of uses test? The first one is the pulpal and dentine uses test, in which the biocompatibility of the material is placed in dentine, and the restorative material, if it is induces any pulp response, is supposed to be the positive control. Then the histopathological examination is to be done after the period of 7, 28, and 70 days for the degree of inflammatory response. The degree of inflammatory response, the manner of reparative dentine formation, and the number of microorganisms entrapped is in the entire cavity would be seen, and that would be a depending criteria whether this particular material is good or not. Then next would be the pulp capping and the pulpotomy uses test. The pulp is exposed for the pulp capping and partially removed for the pulpotomy assessment. Here the calcium hydroxide used as a negative control, and the assessment of dentinal bridge formation adjacent to the subject is called supposed to be the uses test. Third one would be the endodontic uses test, where the pulp is removed and the pulp cavity filled with the obturating test material. Then that particular tooth is removed along with the surrounding apical periodontal tissues in a single en bloc system, and that particular degree of inflammation is evaluated for the degree of inflammation in the periapical tissues. Minimal, no response, or that particular response is resolved within a short duration of time, then we call that particular material as a biocompatible. So here it is a kind of a pyramid where we are supposed to first go for the primary kind of a test, then it is to be followed by secondary kind of a test, and then it would be third is the uses test. The next topic for our discussion is denture-based resin. It would be covered under as what is denture-based resin, ideal requirements, methyl methacrylate, stages of polymerization, types of denture-based resin, properties of denture-based resin, and the denture-based resin is a part of the denture which rests on the soft tissue, and so does not include the artificial tooth. Means the pink portion of any complete denture is called as a denture-based resin. The denture-based resin gets solidified when they polymerized. What is polymerization? Polymerization is a series of chemical reaction in which the macromolecule, means a bigger molecule that is called as a polymer, is formed from a large number of small molecule that is known as monomer. When n number of monomer mixes, n number of monomer comes together with any chemical reaction, the polymerization reaction starts and the polymer is formed. So what are the ideal requirements for the denture-based resin to have? The denture-based resin should have the biological compatibility. It should have a sufficient strength in the form of compressive strength and the impact strength. It should be ease of manipulation. The denture-based resin should have ease of manipulation. It should have the aesthetic properties similar to the oral cavity, and it should be chemically inertness. It should not give any kind of chemical reaction to the oral tissues. And last but not the least, and it's an important topic, that it should, an important point, that it should be economical in nature. The denture-based resin, mostly methyl methacrylate is used as a denture-based resin in India as well as in the abroad. It is a polymerized. It can be polymerized either by heat, visible light, ultraviolet light, or by a chemical initiator. It exhibits a high vapor pressure and it's excellent organic solvent. Mode of supply: generally, this particular methyl methacrylate is supplied in the form of powder and liquid, where the liquid is monomer, is supplied in a tightly sealed umber color bottle to prevent evaporation and for premature polymerization by light. Most of the time, during our spotting and even for the viva of the second BDS, the examiner asks you why the monomer is kept in umber color bottle. So you are supposed to know what is the reason to keep the monomer in the umber color water. That is to prevent evaporation of that material and to prevent premature polymerization. What are the stages of polymerization? The stages of polymerization are classified in two ways. Like first is chemical and second one would be the physical. When the stages of chemical stages of polymerization are induction, where the activation and initiation is happened and the generation of free radical is going to be there. When this the next step is propagation. When this free radical mix, they makes a complex, and that free radical complex are aggregate together to form the dimer, which itself again then acts as a free radical. That reactive complex adds successively large number of molecules so that the polymerization continues throughout the propagation of the reactive center. So whenever the small monomers are going to add, they are going to add by making a free radical, and the propagation they are supposed to continue the polymerization process. In the third step, chain transfer, the active free radical or of a growing chain is transferred to another molecule. For example, a monomer or a inactivated polymer chain, and a new free radical for the further growth is created. That is called as a chain transfer. And the fourth stage is termination. The termination is done either by direct coupling of two radical chain or by the exchange of hydrogen atom from the one growing chain to the another growing chain. So there are four chemical stages of polymerization, that is induction, propagation, chain transfer, and termination. Now we're going to discuss about physical stages of polymerization. Now, the physical stages of polymerization are classified according to the stage of that particular material after the polymer and monomer are mixed. So whenever the polymer and monomer are mixed, the first step is the wet sand stage, and the appearance is like a grainy, non-cohesive, like a wet sand, like a seashore where we have a wet kind of a sand. We can see at a seashore, similar kind of a stage is there, that is called as a wet sand stage. The next stage is going to happen when the monomer is going to mix with the polymer. Then the sticky or the stringy kind of a surface is there. The surface of the particle of the monomer dissolve in the liquid, and the mix becomes sticky or the stringy when it is held between the fingers, or then that fingers are pulled apart. They are called as a stringy stage, where the strings can be formed. Third stage, then it is a very important stage for manipulation, that is a dove stage. The dove stage is where the monomer is more is going to occur, more polymerization occurs in that particular phase, and the homogeneous soft dough-like non-sticky consistency of the moldable mass is prepared. So whenever there is a non-sticky kind of a stage is there, that is called as a dough stage. And most important, packing is done at this particular stage. During the viva and during the spotting also, this question is always asked to the examinees, like at what stage the packing is to be done. Packing is always to be done at the dove stage. The next is the rubbery or the elastic stage, where the monomer disappears by further penetration into the polymer and evaporation. So the mass is cohesive, rubber-like, and it cannot be molded. So it is of no use, because we are supposed to pack the entire material to that particular stage. The next stage is a stiff stage, where the mass become more stiff, and this is of again a useless kind of stage. But as the stages are there, we are supposed to mention the stages of physical stages of polymerization. Types of denture based resin: there are basically three types of denture based resin depending on the activation of that particular resin. First one would be the heat activated resin, second one would be the chemical activated resin, and third one would be the light activated resin. Heat activated denture based resin composition, again the same, powder and liquid form. Powder is composed of a pre-polymerized spheres of polymethyl methacrylate dissolved in a monomer, and it reduces polymerization shrinkage. Next one is the initiator in the form of benzoyl peroxide, and it is to provide the free radical. The next step would be the dibutyl phthalate, which is acted as a plasticizer. For radioopicifiers, the barium and the bismuth salts are there. Color pigments are there to have the different colors for the denture based resin. Like for denture based resin can range from pink to the slightly reddish kind of a shade, but the basic color would be pink, but the different value and chroma is going to change depending on the addition of color pigments. Various copolymers are added, which increases the solubility of the powder with the resin, with the monomer, and it reduces the dough forming time and the brittleness. Powder is a transparent resin unless the color pigments are added to it, and it allows to penetrate the ultraviolet range in the range of 250 nanometers. The Knoop hardness number is around 18 to 20 kHn. The composition of the liquid is like it is a non-polymerized methyl methacrylate monomer. As we know, this monomer is going to make the polymer. And hydroquinone in the range of 0.06%, that is used as an inhibitor. Glycol dimethacrylate as a cross-linking agent, and co-monomers like ethyl acrylates, butyl acrylate, etc. are added in a composition of monomer. Monomer is a transparent liquid at room temperature with the following points, like boiling point. Here the boiling point is very important. Most of the time the examiner asks to you like a boiling point of water and boiling point of liquid, that is monomer. You're supposed to know the boiling point of monomer, that is 100.8 degrees Celsius. This is the heat activated denture based resin. Again, what is the ratio? The acceptable polymer monomer ratio is 3:1 by volume and 2:1 by weight. Again, MCQ can be asked to you on this particular point, like what is the polymer monomer ratio by weight or by volume? You are supposed to know it is 3:1 by volume and 2:1 by weight. This provides sufficient monomer for the polymerization reaction, and then the volumetric shrinkage of that particular polymerized resin can be limited to 7% and 0.5% as a linear shrinkage. The heat activated denture based resin is used as a compression molding technique. This is the cross section for a compression molding technique, where the base is there over which you can have the cast is there. This is the denture base with the teeth. This is the counter flask. This is plaster, and this is the lid. This is a cross section of a compression molding technique, where the heat cured acrylic resin, heat activated acrylic resin is packed after dewaxing in the mold, which is prepared after the dewaxing of that particular flask. The next one, the heat activated denture based resin can also be used as a injection molding technique, where the material is forcefully injected through the channel which is created in the veracity flask. This is a special type of veracity flask where the channel for the injection molding technique is used. It is little bit technique sensitive, and the most commonly kind of most common kind of a technique is heat activated denture based resin. And I am sure most of you must have done this exercise in your preclinical lab. The heat activated denture based resin polymerization cycle is the heating process used to control polymerization. Once the packing is done, Then after bench curing, it is supposed to be subjected to polymerization cycle. What is polymerization cycle? It is the heating process which is used to control the polymerization. Different types of curing cycles or the polymerization cycles are available or recommended by the authors by different kind of studies. As first, at a constant temperature of 74 degrees Celsius for 8 hours. The second one would be 74 degrees Celsius for 8 hours and then increasing it to 100 degrees Celsius for 1 hour. Here the word increasing to 100 degrees Celsius is very important. Then the third point is the 74 degrees Celsius for 2 hours and followed by 1 hour, that is followed by 1 hour boiling at 100 degrees Celsius. Here there are generally the examiners ask you what are the different types of polymerization cycle, slow curing cycle and the rapid curing cycle. So the 74 degrees Celsius 2 hours followed by 1 hour is the rapid curing cycle, that is supposed to be the answer. Now next we will discuss about the chemically activated resin. This is also called as autopolymerizing acrylic resin, or in a layman's language it is also called as self-cure acrylic resin. It is again available in the form of powder and the liquid. The composition is the pre-polymerized spheres of polymethyl methacrylate, that is to dissolve the monomer and reduce polymerization shrinkage. Again, it has an initiator, that is benzoyl peroxide, plasticizer in the form of dibutyl phthalate, color pigments, copolymers that increases the solubility of powder and reduces the dough forming time and brittleness. But here one more thing is added, that is called as an activator. In case of a chemical activated resin, the activator is added in the form of NN-dimethyl p-toluidine. This particular activator is responsible for the initiation of the reaction. In case of a heat cured acrylic resin or heat activated acrylic resin, the heat is required for the activation of the polymerization reaction. But in case of chemically activated resin, and the activator is in the form of NN-dimethyl p-toluidine is used. The chemically activated resin, the advantages are slightly less volumetric shrinkage is there as compared to heat cured acrylic resin. The greater dimensional accuracy is there. The manipulation, that is processing and the deflasking, is relatively easy as compared to heat cured acrylic resin, but it has a greater amount of unreacted monomer, and that is the reason it has the many disadvantages in the form of the properties of the denture based resin. It has a decreased transfer strength at its control, as it has more amount of unreacted monomer. That is going to change the biocompatibility of this material. This material cannot be used directly in the oral cavity because it has a more amount of unreacted monomer. It has an inferior color stability because whatever the amount of monomer is present, that produces the oxidation of that particular monomer happens in the oral cavity, and that gives an inferior color stability to the chemically activated resin. In the chemically activated resin, if you want to go for the fabrication of the denture, then one more technique is described, like the fluid resin technique, where the specialized kind of a flask is used, and the agar is used as a duplicating material, and after this particular duplication of this particular cast has been done, after sealing, this vent is made, that acting as a channel to fill the resin, and then again the teeth are properly aligned in the mold cavity, and the cast is there. And in the next step, that fluid resin is going to be poured by the channel what we have made in the flask, and then after the removal of that particular reversible hydrocolloid, that is agar, you will get the restoration or the denture like this. Next is the light activated resin. What is it? It is a composite resin which is a matrix of urethane dimethacrylate, microfine silica, and the high molecular weight acrylic resin monomers. It is where the visible light is acting as an activator and camphoraquinone is acting as an initiator, which is a photo initiator. Most of the time, it is nice to know type of a topic, like an examiner asks you, what do you understand by photo initiator? Can you enumerate any photo initiator? Then you're supposed to answer camphoraquinone in a light activated resin or a composite resin is a photo initiator. It is a single component denture based resin supplied in the form of either sheet or a rope, and it is packed into the light proof pouches to prevent the inadvertent polymerization of that particular resin. The light activated resin cannot be flashed in a conventional manner what we are supposed to go for heat activated and the self cure acrylic resin, self cure or autopolymerizing acrylic resin. But here the teeth are arranged on the denture base and was molded accurately on the cast. Subsequently, that particular denture base is exposed to a high intensity visible light for an appropriate period for polymerization. Here, this type of light activated resin is there, where the either it is available in the form of a rope on a sheet, and then the teeth are arranged in the similar fashion what you are going to do. Then little bit amount of adjustment can be done in the form of waxing, carving and all, and then that entire prosthesis is placed in a light cured chamber for the better curing of that particular light activated resin. But what are the properties of the denture based resin which are important, like polymerization shrinkage? The polymerization shrinkage is very important because whenever there is a polymerization, the mass is there would be going to happen a shrinkage. That shrinkage can be vary from heat cure to self cure, and also for self cure to light activated resin. In case porosity, in case of heat activated resin, the porosities are more as compared to self care resin. The water absorption, what amount of water that particular denture based resin can absorb is called as a water absorption. Solubility, practically this particular kind of a material, that is denture based resin, after curing is practically impossible for the soluble in water, but a little small nano kind of solubility of that particular material is there whenever the researchers have seen this particular topic. The crazing means the what are the stresses are occurred in this particular denture based resin, that stresses are going to be seen as a crazing, that is a mechanical stresses that can be seen along the vector lines of the denture based resin, and the strength in the, is to be considered in the form of compressive strength and the impact strength. Generally, the question is asked to you either SAQ or a part of LAQ, like compare or give the comparison for chemical and heat activated denture based resin. The comparison should be done on the basis of activator. Like in case of a chemical cure, the activator is N-methyl N-dimethyl p toluidine, whereas in case of a heat activated, the heat is activator. Molecular weight of the chemically activated is relatively less, and the heat activator is relatively more. And the residual monomer content of the chemical cure would be less, heat cure it would be more. Polymerization shrinkage, chemical cure it would be less because the monomer is there, and in heat activated polymerization shrinkage would be more. As the unreacted monomer is there, the strength is less in case of a chemical activated, and in case of a heat activated, the strength is relatively high. May it be a transfer strength, compressive strength, or the impact strength. The strength of the heat activated resin is always superior as compared to chemical activated. Porosity is relatively less in case of chemical activated, and it would be more in case of a heat activated. The distortion, creep and deformation would be more in case of chemical activated as compared to heat activated. Color stability is inferior in case of chemical activated as compared to heat activated. The ease of deflasking is good in case of chemical activated, and it is bad or relatively worst in case of a heat activated. Biocompatibility is, it is excellent biocompatibility with the heat activated and inferior biocompatibility with the chemical activated because it contains unreacted monomer content is there. The casting procedures,